Good morning, friends. Hello, hello. How are you this morning? Hope you're doing all right. Good morning to you. Hello. Pray you. We are back for another week here, beginning our sixth year together. If you've been a part of our journey, so it is quite a thing to come into the sixth year of our little podcasting journey and little live streaming journey together. So hope you're doing great, and that the richness of your days in this. Give it a minute and folks to come along. Good morning, friends. Hey, Karen. Good morning to you. Hope you're doing great. Hello, everybody. Hello. All right, friends. Glad you're here. Let's get going this morning. It is the 25th day of March at 11:11, and I'm glad things are good and hope they are well for others, and that I'm and that it is a joy to be with you for another week. This month is the 340th anniversary, his birthday of Johann Sebastian Bach. Uh, the the church, the world would not be the same without had that crazy little German out there in composed the 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 beauty that he did with the efforts of his days. And but it wasn't always that way. You see, for many years, Bach was, for about the first 100 years or so, even, much of Bach's literature, or his composing and his music had kind of passed into obscurity. And as we are kind of part way, two-thirds of the way or so, we have another couple weeks left of our Lenten disciplines and our Lenten walk. One of Bach's great compositions is the Passion of the Lord Jesus Christ according to the Gospel of Matthew. It's generally called the St. Matthew's Passion. It was one of the things that Bach kind of most, and I mean, a guy so prolific, and if you're not a classical music person, that's okay, but you can't, but if you don't get music as we understand it without Bach. Like, if you don't get, you know, Bill Haley and the Comets. You don't get the world that we of music that we have without the influence of this guy. So just I would understand it. Like, if you don't find this stuff beautiful, that's okay. If there is any music at all you find musical that beautiful within the Western panoply, part of it is it's probably uh, influenced or touched or have been formed in some way by J.S. Bach and that's how huge his effect was on the musical world, and 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 everything he composed was really for the use within a church service, and uh, and late in life, though, as he's you know nearing the end of his life, he he dedicates himself to the Saint Matthew's Passion. He actually he spends in his old age, but when he's not really composing anymore, he goes about repairing the manuscript. Now, the manuscript for this thing is huge. You can actually go, the original copy, you can see it online. Is he made a presentation quality copy of this, and which is still in existence today. And in fact, it is he painstakingly bounded himself. He painstakingly bound it. There's actually there were tears in the manuscript. He actually hand sewed the tears so that it could be preserved. He wrote in different colored ink, in red ink and black ink, the words of that are to be sung with this piece of music. It takes, if one's to perform it, it takes about 3 hours, and it takes a couple of orchestras to put it together. It is this incredible, huge work that he painstakingly made sure would be preserved, or at least he hoped so. There were, after his death, few people even saw this manuscript, and it was and anybody who saw it looked at it and consider it unperformable. That was the consensus within the musical world, that even after his death, people would look at this thing and they would say it's impossible to perform. And they would go on, and it wouldn't be until 1829, and a kid by the name of Mendelssohn would come along, good old Felix. In 1829, 100 years later, Felix would come along, and he would find this manuscript, and he would kind of pare it down and abridge it, and in abridging it and keeping it together, he would perform it in Berlin for the first time. And it was this abridging, this cutting back, this kind of Mendelssohn putting his own little stamp on it, that actually revived most of the interest in Bach again. That he was slipping quickly into obscurity. Now you might say he's still obscure, or if you're not, and again, if you're not a classical music person, that's cool. It's not what this is about. But it's about saying that as the genius of this music began to be resurrected, it was done so by a 20-year-old Felix Mendelssohn, who was working out his new fervor for Jesus, that he had just converted to Christianity. He had just made a pledge to become a Christian, and in it he began to become excited about all of these different musical components that he would find within the Christian tradition. And part of it that he would bring into being is J.S. Bach. That now, again, now you can go, actually, this thing is nearly 3 hours long. Again, with a couple of, it takes like double orchestras, double choirs to do it properly, to do it the way that Bach had intended. It is a massive undertaking, and you can go on YouTube and watch it if you're really into that sort of thing. But my point is, it is, and again, it is is to point ourselves at what it is pointing at. It was composed, and this is why Bach composed it. And this, I wonder, and I suspect this is in some ways why he found it one of the most compelling and most important things that he would seek to preserve and put it forward, and why a new convert, a new believer in Jesus that was coming to the faith would find it so compelling to try and bring into being, because it is the passion of St. Matthew's Gospel. And what that means is, if you're not a church person, it's fine. What that means is that it is the story of the transition into Holy Week, the journey from the Lenten disciplines into the betrayal, the teaching, the betrayal, the triumphal entry into Jerusalem, the Last Supper, and all of the events of Holy Week. And we're a couple of weeks out still in our celebrations. But here's the thing. We may be a couple of weeks out, but there's this shift, there's this invitation to us to begin to look in those ways, to begin to conceive of what it is for us to awaken, us to reflect on the fact that the one who is God came into this world to be as we are, to came into this world to bear all the troubles that we have. There is no trouble. There's no angst. There's no desire. There's no worry. There's no brokenness. There's no physical challenge that Christ did not take on himself. That God has not fully and thoroughly experienced and known, and that urges us away from this kind of kind of uh, desire of uh, of of contraction or repentance that comes in Lent, to simply into this experience of beauty, into the experience of what it is to have God in our midst, in the highest of places and the most broken of places, and all of the places in between. I think about this story, and there's a few things that I think are most striking about it. But to me, the most striking one is not simply that this is what Bach, this one of the greatest musical geniuses who ever lived, this is what he dedicated, that he really dedicated his life to, but also that it would fall into obscurity, and it would simply a 20-year-old convert with a little musical talent called Felix Mendelssohn, that would find it and would bring it back into life, and almost single-handedly bring this incredible thing, this incredible work back into the world, and with it so much of Bach's incredible compositions and musical score and all that. And that's what I think this journey, that as we get ready here in these next few weeks, as we kind of prepare ourselves to prepare, sort of thing, is to think about these places where might we rescue a little beauty in our life? Where might we, in simply looking for the face of Jesus, looking for the face of the true and the good and the beautiful, looking for a thing that brings the world goodness and joy, where might we enter into this notion of bringing a little beauty into the world? We think about Bach's efforts to preserve this manuscript. And then Mendelssohn, 100 years later, 100 years later, dusting this thing off and putting his own stamp on it and bringing it into the world, that it finally finds its place. It finally finds its beauty. It finally finds its wonder. Friends, I feel like you and I sometimes are in the same place, that we have treasures scattered about us that we don't always notice. We have wonders scattered. We have beauty in our midst that is hard for us to encounter or to actually see. But with a little bit of work around the edges, a little bit of a bridging, with a little bit of bringing them into our life, we can actually bring something grand and beautiful and incredible into being. So, no matter where we find ourselves in this Lenten walk, whether you're still kind of walking out these disciplines in these days, whether you're kind of looking for the end finish line, whether you're keeping a discipline or not, my invitation to you is that your efforts, like Bach's efforts, to sew up that manuscript and to use those different colored inks to ensure that the beautiful thing that he'd created would be preserved into the world, and then to discover that for 100 years it was not, and it was nearly lost, and that it comes along as an instrument of providence to find something beautiful in it from a guy much later who is simply trying to discover his own walk with Jesus. Friends, I hope you'll discover your walk in these few days as we get ready to shift gears from the Lenten disciplines into the journey of Holy Week, and that the passion of Saint Matthew and that its story might allow you to enter into your own passion, enter into your own challenges, enter into your own suffering, enter into those places in which you've offered your own beauty and it feels like the world has lost its way. In all of it, friends, it is my hope that that the moments of incredible beauty that unfold, and when you listen to St. Michael's Passion, and whether you choose to listen to it or not, but that's kind of what it is. It is a chore to listen to this thing, by the way. But actually, it is again 3 hours of really complicated music. It's work to get through it, and yet in moments of it, there was incredible beauty that will unfold. Friends, there is incredible beauty that will unfold in your life when we work at that beauty itself. We can give ourselves away to the tears around the edges. We can give ourselves away to the abridging. We can give ourselves away to the dustiness and to the loss of all the things. But when we give ourselves away to listening for the beauty of the song, when we look for the beauty of a manuscript that lost a long time ago, when we look to the efforts of those who came before us that have preserved beautiful things in our midst, we will find enfolded within him beauty unfolding and the face of eternity in which time stands still. All right, friends, that's my hope for you today, that you might find those places of eternity in your midst, that you might find Bach's own sonatas in your little dustbins of your days. Peace and grace to you, and we'll pick it up tomorrow with another 11:11.